Welcome to Spirit, Purpose, and Energy. I'm JJ Flazanes, your host, and thank you for downloading today's episode. Today's episode has been a long time coming, and it's going to be an ultra-personal episode. I will warn you up front. It will be a solo show. It will just be me. While there is a book called Sacred Contracts, Awakening Your Divine Potential by Caroline Myss, she is not being interviewed today. Hopefully I will be able to interview her in the near future. But for today, I just wanted to walk you through my concept of this and how it's played out in my life, what that means for me, and some of the lessons I've learned along the way for you. So first I want to review Sacred Contracts. What is it? This book and this concept was introduced to me probably in 2005, where I understood it to be that we incarnate before we get here. We choose our parents, we choose our path, and we even choose the lessons we want to learn before we ever incarnate into a body. And those lessons obviously need participants. They need people who we have relationships with. So for instance, if I want to come down and learn forgiveness, then I probably need somebody to do something to me that's pretty awful in order for me to learn forgiveness. In fact, Colin Tipping talks about that in his book, Radical Self-Forgiveness. He goes through the understanding of radical self-forgiveness being that all of these people are called healing angels in your life. They weren't here to hurt you, but to help you grow and expand in some way. And when you can take that position of healing angels, that everyone in your life, good and or bad, throughout your life, situations that have happened to you that have really changed the course or trajectory of your life, they're not here to hurt you per se. In fact, you may have made a contract with them before you even got here for them to do what was done to you, for you to learn the lesson you wanted to learn. Now, isn't that an empowering thought? We can come down and think that we had no participation in the way that we got here. And that sets you up as a victim. I didn't choose to be here. Well, what if you did? What if, for some of you, this is going to be a huge stretch, not those of you that listen to Spirit, Purpose, and Energy, but for a lot of you, this whole concept may be like, what? I didn't choose to be here. My parents got pregnant and then they had me and I was just pulled down. Well, that's one way to look at it. But what if you decided everything in your life, every relationship, every situation that happened, not to the exact intricacies of them, because I believe that while that you have laid out a path where law of attraction fits in here, is you still have the opportunity every day to focus what you think about, what you tell yourself, how you feel, having opportunities to get emotions in and out of you, to take what you have and work with it so that you're never really a victim. But what if you decided before you got here that you wanted the life, the exact life you have? I think it's really powerful. And that is what this book's concept is mainly about. It's also about really understanding your higher purpose and your contribution to your life training, that everything that happens to you is about your life lesson. You know, Oprah's got a show called Life Class. I don't know if she's still doing it, but she had it. And Life Class, I mean, that's everything, right? Like all the work we're doing here on these shows, the events that I'm doing, the books that I'm writing, you going through your life. I mean, life is a class. You have the opportunity to learn all the time how to do it better, how to do it differently, how to consciously co-create instead of just sort of stumble along thinking that everything is working against you. A sacred contract enhances our personal spiritual growth while contributing to the evolution of the entire global soul. That's what Caroline talks about in this book. I'm going to read it again. A sacred contract enhances our personal spiritual growth while contributing to the evolution of the entire global soul. Now, said differently, Abraham talks about that we are always expanding, and that those of us that choose to be physical, because we're always non-physical. So there's a part of us that's always energetic. But then sometimes, every so often, we choose to also be physical. So again, think of the sun and the sunbeam. We're all made of the sun. We're all a part of the sun. And at some points, we decide that we want to be a sunbeam. So we focus here on Earth as a human body. But we're also here to help the universal expansion. I mean, think about if you're a parent or grandparent, or you don't have to actually be a parent at all if you're paying attention, to the kids born today versus the kids born 10 or 20 years ago. The knowledge of technology, the knowledge and consciousness of an awareness that kids have now, being born today, than they did 5, 10, 15 years ago, is light years different, right? It's more advanced. And the reason is because we as a unit of energy are always expanding. So whether it be from the law of attraction point of view or from Caroline's point of view, that we are contributing to the evolution of the entire global soul, this is what the sacred contracts is about. The contract is your overall personal relationship to your personal power and your spiritual power, and how you work with it and who you give it to. This book and this belief, this understanding also asks us how much we are willing to surrender to divine guidance. That is one of the reasons why I picked up on this book, because the idea that I already created all this means that a part of me already knows the path. And this physically focused human part of me doesn't know the path. And the only way for me to connect those two parts together is to have some kind of surrender. And so the idea of allowing guidance, whether it be divine guidance, your higher self, your subconscious mind, universe, whatever you want to call it, God, I don't really care. But if we all understand that we are energy and that we don't die, we recycle. Or we don't. Maybe some souls don't want to recycle. There's I've got tons of other books on the age of your soul. And Ty Kane and I talked about not wanting to come. He didn't want to come back again. He's done. He wants to choose not to come back. So although I don't know that I believe that, but we are energy, and energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It just changes form. So the other aspect about sacred contracts is that there are no insignificant relationships. And I'm setting this all up for you because I'm about to share something very personal, and I want to take it from this broader perspective, because this broader perspective I've really been living and understanding. I'm that person when you tell me a concept like, let's say, The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton, and I hopefully will have Bruce Lipton on the show in the near future as well. But I haven't read the book, because when someone explained to me the concept, I didn't need to read the book in terms of I buy into it. I believe it. 150%. I don't need to be proven that our cells have emotions and that we are retraining our body all the time. So the biology of belief, I'm 100% on board. Same thing with sacred contracts. So I haven't read this entire book, but I've read enough of it right now to bring it to you in a more educated way for those of you that don't believe it or resonate with it as I am explaining it right off the bat. So this sacred contract idea is that there is no such thing as an insignificant relationship. Everything has a purpose. There are no mistakes. You have laid this out. It's also about the spiritual alchemy of transforming heavy physical relationships and emotions into spiritual gold. Now, doesn't that sound good? Spiritual alchemy is transforming heavy physical relationships and emotions into spiritual gold with greater function and meaning for your life, and again, that global soul understanding. So this is the premise I would like to start today off with, because if you don't get it, buy it, or believe it yet, I just invite you today to put it on, try it on. Think about how life would be different if you took that vantage point. You don't have to take it forever, and you don't have to take it at all, of course. I can't control that, but I would love you to try it on. Because if all of a sudden this victim mentality and this story that we tell ourselves about how this person did this to us and this wrong thing, and we carry around this shame, this heavy-hearted rejection, victimization, abandonment, scarcity. If we carry that around because of the story that we're telling ourselves, what happens when that story changes? What happens when you get to stand back and go, wow, I chose that. I created that. And I created what happened. So whether or not that person played a perfect part in my growth and in my expansion and in my next level. What if there are no mistakes? There are no mistakes. with who you're in relationship with and why? What if we took that position to understand that you are perfectly right where you need to be? Doesn't that feel a little better? And like everything has a purpose and a reason for your growth? Now, on one hand, some of you may say, well, that's a lot of work and I'm tired. And please, God, give me no more lessons today, Oprah says. I'm not ready for any more lessons today. And I understand that. And for those of you that are through some of your biggest lessons, now you get to see you're on the other side of that big mountain. You get to say, oh my God, if it wasn't for that thing, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I like where I am today. And I know where I am today is where I'm supposed to be today. That is part of your sacred contracts and the relationships that you have from inception to death. But I mean, death is really just you leaving the sunbeam and going back to the sun and wanting to come back another time later, and which you will. So what's the news? What is this all set up for? For those of you that have known me personally or been following the show for a long time, I know because I hear the feedback. I get it from clients. I hear it on emails and through Instagram and through the live event. I understand. I appreciate the feedback. So I know a lot of you do get me. And what I mean by get me is that you understand that I come from the place of empowerment and I want to do the best I can always do. And I always feel like I can fix things, especially because you're the creator of your own reality. If I'm the creator of my own reality, then if I don't like something, I can change it. And what has happened to me in the last couple of months, well, it's been going on longer than a couple of months, but maybe a year and a half. And even longer before that, I have been in a situation in my marriage where I haven't felt that connection. Not that I needed the connection. For those of you that know me, no one who didn't know me too well had any idea that I was in a situation where my marriage was sort of falling apart for a couple of years. Falling apart in a we were distancing from each other. Our habits and patterns were creating a bigger gap of connection. And I was coming from the place of fixing it myself. And I was coming from the place of using law of attraction to activate and expect something higher. And a lot of times it worked. Many times we reconnected in a new way, in a deeper way, in a more physically affectionate way. And so when I was doing the work, it was working. But there came a point in time where the work wasn't enough and my relationship needed to change. And I knew secretly that my husband wasn't happy for a long time, and he would blame me for not being happy and things that I would do or things about me that he didn't like. And I tried really hard. I've done really every therapy there is to do. You have it on this show, from EMDR to take away any of the defensiveness that I had in the beginning of our marriage, which really did help. And I am a huge fan of EMDR. And I'm a huge fan of taking on situations like that when you're with a spouse or a loved one and there's an argument happening and you get triggered and you get defensive, well, there's something for you to do. You can work on your trigger. It's really never going to work to tell the other person to go to therapy, even though the other person may have like a laundry list of things that are obviously an issue, but that doesn't matter because nobody wants to be told what to do and nobody wants to be told that they're broken and I don't believe everybody is broken. Again, go back to the beginning of the show. You chose your path. You chose it. So if you're feeling broken, you get to do something about that. And so in the case of my marriage, and I did manifest my husband, I wrote Fit to Love from a place of, and I, over the last almost 10 years of our marriage and 12 years of being together, I would second guess and wonder and check in with myself on a very deep soul level and ask, am I supposed to be here? Because things would happen, something that I didn't like, that some big contrasting situation, which I came up against and said, I didn't sign up for this. And I was ready to head out in the beginning, but then I kept checking in and my body kept saying, nope, this is where you're supposed to be. I even had an ex-boyfriend come back and ask before we got married if it was too late. He said, I should be marrying you. And I made a big mistake. And even in that moment, when I had a good relationship with that past boyfriend. I mean, it wasn't amazing, but there were aspects of it that were really good. But I said, no, it's too late. I'm in the right place. And I've been living in the right place until it was not the right place anymore. And every time I would check in with myself, both in therapies, in meditations. I would say, no, this is where I'm supposed to be. And I believe my gut check. I am a great manifester, and I'm really connected soul level to my body and to my guidance. And I've taken the time. So I believe I could fix anything, and that's what I've been doing. But what I've really been doing is I've been taking this very serious master life class about mastering myself. And every step along the way, what I have come up against in my marriage and that I have asked myself, what can I do about this, has actually led me to you. It's led me to this. If it wasn't for my marriage, I wouldn't have written Fit to Love. If it wasn't for my marriage, I wouldn't have done the podcast. In all honesty, most of these shows were done for my husband, because women and men, you know that you can't tell your spouse what to do. You can't really educate the other person because they're not going to receive it, because that's coming from you. And then you become the teacher, and they want you to be their equal. They don't want you to be the teacher. So instead of trying to be the teacher, or even an equal that wanted to do more work, I thought, I'll do a show. I'll put it on the show, because I know sometimes people listen better when they hear it from somebody else or when they hear it from an expert. So I brought on experts. I went over every single thing I could think of to address from another expert's point of view about how to live an empowered life and how to clean up some of the past traumas that we go through as children. And I did all that really for my marriage. And I did all that for myself because, again, I believed that if you're the creator of your own reality, that you can fix it and you can fix anything. And I believed I can fix anything. So here I am going along in this podcast. And then the podcast, of course, breaks out into what I really want to be talking about, which is more law of attraction based living, which includes healthy living, hormones, alternative medicine, great relationships, relationship advice, exercise from a smart position. It includes everything that I teach and everything that I stand for, but from a position of an overall understanding about these sacred contracts, about law of attraction, about divine guidance, and about the fact that we choose to be here over and over again in different ways. And so I had gone through about a 14-month period where I was painfully aware that my spouse was not happy and wanted to leave. And he didn't know how much I knew he wanted to leave, but I did. And throughout the times where I was really present to certain dates that he had in his mind that he wanted to leave, I, the whole time, was processing. And I still was going through this unlayering process. I got back into the work with Colin Tipping of Radical Self-Forgiveness. I actually was listening to it for my event or for my next event, thinking I wanted to bring that into the next big step. And what ended up happening is that I realized I needed to hear it. I did it for me. And I'm crying in the car and I'm realizing that I'm holding myself hostage because I do the right thing. That's part of what I do. I have so many planets in Sagittarius. I'm all about truth seeking. I'm all about learning and higher education. And so to me, I'm thinking I'm doing the right thing. I made a commitment. I had never, ever, I know nobody ever wants to be divorced, but my parents are still together and they're almost together 50 years. I have no desire to want to be divorced. So I fought the fact that I think this is fixable, and actually it could be. It could be. But where the sacred contracts comes into play is that at some point after about 14 months and little crumbs, I mean literally crumbs of hope and movement forward, I realized that what am I doing? I am waiting around for someone who possibly will never, ever want to do a fraction of the introspection that I do and the fraction of the healing work that I want to do. And that's going to be a problem because we have different wounds. And I'm about to release, I waited to release the Harville Hendrix interview because I wanted to come out first. I wanted to come out of the closet first here on the show so that you could really hear in my interview with him how I'm talking about two different relationships in that show with him. And how I believe 100% when you have two people who actually want to do the work. And it doesn't have to be painful. It just has to be conscious. And you have to want to couple and you have to want to love yourself on a level that is meaningful to do it. And if you don't, and there are many people that don't, and they don't listen to my show, and they won't care what comes out of my mouth ever. And that's cool, and that's okay. But for those of you that are attracted to my work and what I do and what I'm about, I really have over and over again proven to myself that what I do is working in this way. So throughout the process of the last 14 months of sort of the decline of the marriage and me just trying to do anything and everything that I could for myself, from law of attraction, working on myself, to visualizing, part of the work I did with Ty was to save my marriage. Ty Kane and I did a couple sessions together, and I will credit him for sure of one of those very first sessions of the future visioning process that I did with him. And I saw a vision. And I'll talk a little bit about that later, but I saw a vision. But the whole entire point of he and I connecting was to save my marriage. So that was number one. I invested into that kind of work. And then the next person who made a huge contribution was Lisa Thomas, which you've heard on the show, and she'll be on the show again, and she's coming to the event. And I really, if you want any kind of inherited emotional DNA clearing, or even we did a clearing which actually broke a tie, an emotional cord between my husband and I. And it cleaned that cord and that connection, because that connection had wilted and died, and it was no longer a positive connection. She also cleared anything that might trigger him in me, just to make sure that I was doing all that I could on my end. But she also cleared the path for an easy transition if it didn't work. And I've got this recording where I'm bawling my eyes out for hours. I mean, I'm hysterically crying the entire time because it's not what I wanted. And so, but she cleared everything, and she led the path for an easy transition if that was to happen. And I still was like, nope. I still thought there was hope. I saw evidence of change, and I really thought that something was going to shift. And all the while, I was making peace with all of it. And I run a 30-day manifestation challenge, and Fit to Love was born out of the fact that I attracted my husband. I manifested my husband. Part of the shame and the fear about possibly ending a marriage for me was the shame that would come into that. I've written this book about how to manifest the love of your life, and I'm going to say it doesn't work now. Huge shame, huge pressure on me to not be a phony and to not say that my stuff doesn't work. So I had to make peace with that. I had to experience really loving myself on a new level and saying, there's only so much you can do. And I've really tried everything. So I waited, and I waited until, I had hope. I had hope until the very, very end, like the very last day. In fact, this all happened around April. So around April 9th, we had a conversation. On April 7th, there was a conversation that I thought was a possible breakthrough conversation. And that conversation led me to be hopeful. That was a Saturday. And then something on Sunday, the 8th of April, shifted. What shifted was my understanding that my love languages, which were not being at all attributed to. We had been going through some of the imago therapy. We didn't do the whole thing. We did about three of the processes out of the 12 in the workbook and in the book. So we only scratched the surface, and he didn't even finish the homework of the last process we did, the third one, which was a life changer for me. Game changer. Holy cow, everyone should be doing this process. And I don't like to use the word should, but if you're at all in therapy or if you're having any kind of relationship issues, I'm telling you right now, the third process about creating your imago is the work to start with, even if you're not in a relationship, because it will show you exactly why you chose your partner and why you keep choosing friendships and business partnerships and relationships over and over again. What is the childhood wound you need to heal? So I did that process, and it changed me. And he didn't finish the worksheets. And I'd asked, can I please see them? And he didn't finish it. And then a couple weeks later, I asked again, and I said, can I? He said, well, I didn't finish it. And I said, well, can I finish it? And I finished it for me to understand why he chose me and how, when he doesn't get his way or his needs met, how he responds. And now I have a very clear picture of what it is I needed to heal and what he needed to heal. So here it is, the 7th of April, and I'm feeling a little hope, actually more hope than I have, because things are kind of starting to shift and change for him. And I'm thinking maybe that means things are going to shift and change for me, and then wake up the next morning and get this really kick in the pants feeling that, nope, that does not mean there will be any more commitment to you or this marriage. And something inside of me shifted in a way that wasn't reactionary. I am a big fan of not reacting, but healing yourself. So what I mean by that is when I talk about victim mentality and things about different kinds of therapies, and why I really hate couples therapy that's not imago, is because it becomes a who did what and who said that and who hurt there and why do you hurt there. And it's like, it doesn't make a bigger point to connect the reason why you chose each other in the first place. So I now understand why each of us chose each other. And I am now in a place of healing any triggers or traumas that I can get my hands on within myself, so I can come from a place of love and centeredness at all times. A lot of people react to a bad situation by threatening divorce or threatening to leave each other. And I didn't ever want to come from that place, because I wanted to be at peace with myself. I wanted to be at peace with my decision, no matter what it was. I wanted to be committed to the higher vision of all of it. So I waited for months because I honestly had hope, and I was having a little bit of hope, and I was hoping because I was doing my work. One of the things that I teach in the Manifestation Challenge and on this show is how to use law of attraction, which we're going to do at the event. And you're going to do exactly what I did. I wrote 2 lists every night, because when you're in a situation where your partner doesn't want to be with you anymore and isn't giving you any energy and isn't connecting with you and is rejecting you, what can you do? Well, you can leave. That's definitely one thing you can do. But the other thing you can do is you can work on your frequency and vibration. And in fact, I have a new client who I just worked with who said to me that he did not believe it was possible for he and his wife to work it out. And after our session, not even 2 days later, they were talking about moving away together. She is now coming on a trip or 2 with him, and there is huge hope, because in the frequency he was in, he could not see nor feel or connect to a solution. He did not believe it was possible. And so my suggestion was to do the process that I did, which was to get yourself in a better vibration and frequency to receive the answer and to connect on a different level, because people will show up for you the way you expect them to. If you think someone's going to show up being defensive and being a jerk, then they're going to show up being defensive and being a jerk, because that's the energy you are tapped into. You have to tune yourself to what you want. I had such guilt and shame, and I made some videos. I've got several videos actually, but one is me telling the story about my relationship, and another I'll tell you about in a minute, and the other one I'll tell you about in a minute, and they're going to be at my blog at jjflazanes.com. Okay, so go to jjflazanes.com, go to the blog, and it'll be under Sacred Contracts, the post that I'm going to put this show on the blog, along with the videos and some photos that I want to share with you, because I've been holding this for months. But the point here is the frequency and the vibration. So the practice that I did every day during this 14-month process, pretty much, was I focused on what I wanted. Again, going back to that, you can react by getting upset, getting triggered, and then from that place of being triggered, make a decision about something. And I'm going to suggest you don't do that, because you're oftentimes not making a clear-headed decision that's rooted in your truth. It's coming from a wounded place of being triggered, and now you're making a decision based on things that wounded you, and that it's like your weakness. You are making a decision from a place of weakness versus a place of strength. And I wanted to come from a place of strength. So somehow, some way, my body aligned on the 8th of April to say, okay, I think the only thing left to do is to surrender and allow this relationship to morph into its next stage. Oh, I didn't even tell you what I did. Let me go back. So every day what I did to increase and raise my vibration was I wrote my list of positive aspects, and sometimes they would change. Sometimes they'd just be a list of positive aspects in my journal about what I did that day, or more focused, I would do it about my husband or our marriage. And then I'd make a second list on the same page about what I wanted, what I know and knew I could create in a relationship. I was super specific. In fact, I'm going to read you some of them. So I'll open up the book. And I did this when I manifested him in the first time, although I did it with a vision board. Okay, well, let's see. What do I have here? Okay, so for instance, on February 19th, 2018, I wrote a 10-point list of what I appreciate. And underneath that, I wrote a 10-point list of what I am happy to have. And here is what I wrote. 1, a happy husband, a partner who wants to grow, an empowered partner tired of being a victim, a partner who wants to live life to the fullest, a partner who recognizes me, a partner who trusts me and sees me, a partner who wants to improve physical touch and love, a partner who likes to talk with me and explore ideas, a partner who thinks I'm amazing, a partner who believes in himself as much as me. Now, I made different lists. That was just one random one that I just chose to share with you, but I made different lists, and some of them were about being hugged and kissed and having great sex and traveling together and spending quality time together, because my love language is quality time and touch. So I did a lot of things surrounding what I wanted to feel, because that's what this whole list is about, right? This is law of attraction, people. This is what the work is. The work is that you focus on what you want. You get yourself into a state of what you want and get out of your way. And I just stayed true to that because I did believe 100% that I could get what I wanted. I also believed, and I knew, that in order for my marriage or relationship to change, we needed different perspectives. And so my husband back in December had asked me about moving out, one of us, and I rejected that. I fought it. I did not think that was the right answer. I didn't believe it at all, and I just fought it. And things did get a little bit better after that, and we did reconcile, and he was in a better space after that. But it really showed me where his head was. So I sat with that. That was December. I sat with that until April. And even in between December and April, I'd found out that he wanted to leave again, even though I thought things were getting better. And so I kept that within the possibility of what was going to happen. I also, as I was writing these lists, I surrendered to the idea that the path of least resistance was what was going to happen. And I believe the path of least resistance was going to be my husband. I honestly thought that doing all this work and having him leave and having him move out and being ready for that trial of, okay, go get some perspective. Rather than throw the marriage away, why not go get some perspective? And you even heard on this show, the Cullinanes, Sam and Pat Cullinane, they were at the same exact story. They had the same story at almost 10 years of marriage. They thought they were going to get divorced, and he left that day, took nothing with him, and it took a year. And so that story, I had them on the show because that story was my story, or is my story, and I got a lot of hope out of that because they were apart for a year, and the only reason why they weren't divorced is because their lawyer didn't file the divorce papers, which was divine guidance and intervention for them. And then they got back together and they learned about love languages and they worked on their marriage, and now they teach other people how to work on their marriage. And so I thought by putting that show out there that would help mine as well. And so I knew that the next step was perspective change, and for me to focus on me and for him to focus on him. And so I was ready. The day came, it was April 8th, and I was ready to say, okay, maybe I'm ready now to support you moving out. And that was the day it happened. So on the 8th of April, we had this talk. I was upset, but from a place of my first words were, do you want to be married anymore? And I put it back on him and said, what do you want? And we had a nice talk from a place of knowingness and a place of respect for each other. And we went through the list of all the things that would need to be divided or canceled in terms of different accounts and health insurance and things like that. And we had a very nice talk, even though I bawled for most of it in the beginning of it because of my lack of feeling loved. And the fact that I've said for months and months and months that I was committed and all in. And for 8 months, I haven't had that back. So at some point in time, when you're the partner who is all in and you have someone who's constantly rejecting you and not willing to be all in with you, it's a rejection of yourself. And sometimes people need a little time and space. And I was giving that time and space, and I was doing my work, and I was making my list of what I wanted. And I was literally using the very first vision board I used to manifest my husband again. I would look at the same pictures because I thought if it worked the first time, it can work a second time. And it could work to reactivate this marriage into what I knew it could be. So here we are, and I've surrendered, and I'm feeling this weight sort of release a little bit. And we agreed that because there was no rush, that we could take a couple months to make this transition, and he would be moving out. And we finished that conversation, and we had a plan, and I was feeling a little bit hopeful, but very sad. And I know he was also sad, but probably feeling a little bit of relief. And not even 2 hours later, I got a text message from a former client and a friend who had said to me, "Are you around? I need some help." And I said, what's going on? "Do you want me to call you?" And he said, "No, I can't talk. I've been crying." I said, "What happened?" He said, "My wife left me today." And I said, "Well, there's something in the air today, so I'm going to call you." And I picked up the phone, and as I was walking out of the office to the backyard, I said to my husband, "I'm going to speak to my friend. I'm going to go to have a private conversation with my friend to support him because his wife left him today." And he said, "Okay." So what I'm going to share with you is that my husband had asked me when we were doing the separation conversation, he said, "Is there anybody else?" Because he wanted to know why today of all days. And again, I'm not going to go into all the other details because I can share them with you either on a private phone call that's not being recorded or at the live event, which is recorded but can be edited, because I don't want to go over all the details, but I do want to be honest, and I want to explain what has happened because I want you to get the picture. He asked me if there was anybody else, and there wasn't at all. I couldn't even think of anybody that I would even want to date, or dating wasn't even part of in my mind. And I did want my husband to date. I said, "Please go sleep with people, date people, go live, get some perspective." And we talked about a time frame about, divorcing in 6 months may not be enough. And I said, "Well, I'm not in any rush. Let's do 6 months to a year and just see what happens." And that was honestly my last ditch effort to save my marriage. But what had happened 2 hours later when I got that text message was the universe literally saying, "This is what you've been asking for." Now, that first day, I was supporting my friend. I had no idea what was going to happen next. He had no idea what was going on with my marriage. And for both of us, we were in shock of what had just happened that day. That was April 8th. And then as things started to unfold the next day and the next day and the next day, we realized that this was a very strong connection. And I won't deny that during our friendship, I have always really liked him a lot. I respected that he was married, and I never flirted with him or anything like that, and vice versa. But we, goofy and funny, but never in a million years did I think that I was going to be having these kinds of conversations with him, because he was happily married as far as I knew, and I was committed to my marriage, and so was he. But that day came, and what couldn't have been more clear within the 24 hours after I took that call was that this person was everything I was asking for and more. Now, some of you, friends of mine, of course, thought, okay, this is just a rebound. And I said, maybe. But when I look at this list, and if I'm really honest, there were times where I know I really liked him as a person, as a friend. We lived 3,000 miles away from each other. There was no getting together or seeing each other on a regular basis other than our sessions. And our relationship really just snowballed very quickly. And things that we had subconsciously thought about but didn't express got expressed, because we never would have acted on those anyway. And again, there wasn't really anything there. You meet people that you like, friends of yours, and you think maybe in another lifetime, if I'm ever single, I would be interested in exploring that, but you don't do anything about it because it's not serious. And again, not wanting to be divorced. So at first, we just sort of, supported each other, and we supported each other through this hard time because we both were really hurting, but we also both really liked each other. And it only took about 2 weeks, and I got very clear that I was falling in love with him. And about 2.5 weeks later is when he'll tell you he fell in love with me. And that's the story. So I'm going to keep telling you, I'm going to keep sharing with you, but I want you to come watch the video. So the second video on the page, on the blog, is of me and Doug. So for those of you that are podcasters, it is Mr. Doug Sandler. He is the host of the Nice Guys on Business podcast. And we met August of last year at Podcast Movement when a mutual friend, Nicole Holland, and I were walking around together, and she saw him, said hello, and said, "Hey, you should have JJ on your show." And he said, "Okay." And he gave me his card. And we were going to meet up again in San Diego in September, so I didn't bother following up with him when he gave me his card. I thought I'll just see him in San Diego. And then we had a couple nice conversations in San Diego, nothing more than business stuff. And then he had me on the show. And I was on the Nice Guys on Business, I was on the BizWiz podcast, and on SetX. Those are 3 shows that Turnkey Productions, which is Doug's company, produces. So I was on those 3 shows, and of course talking about what I talk about, which is health and wellness. And one of his goals for the following year, was to get in better shape and start exercising. So of course, then he hired me and became a client. And Doug's pretty committed to doing his own work, so it was really going to be a short 10 sessions of building a program for him. In only one of those sessions did we use to actually do some life coaching, and it wasn't even about his relationship with his wife. It was about his business partner. So we built a relationship, we had a friendship, and we were planning on seeing each other again, and we had a great rapport. So we were friends, and we liked each other, and astrologically, I knew we were compatible, and I knew that eventually we would be able to test that, and we did, and it's been amazing. And I still am in a little bit of mourning and grief, and so is he. So we're both still transitioning. We're both still in mourning. There are sad parts about this situation that I couldn't even anticipate. I realized that when you separate from somebody and you move on from their other relationships as well. You don't just break up with one person. You break up with their whole family and any friends that you have as well. And you get to see who you get to keep. I've been on this path of learning who is going to be a part of my life and who isn't. And every time there's a new person, I feel again like I have the opportunity to be rejected. And I get very emotional because there are a few people that I want to keep in my life and that I don't want to lose. And I don't want to lose my husband as a friend. He said to me he needed my friendship, and he knows about Doug. I told him when it happened. Well, I told him a couple weeks after it happened because I wanted to make sure I was saying something that was going to be real. And he understood. I told him, that I was working on our marriage. So back to the Ty Kane conversation, that vision that I had with Ty, if I'm honest about the person who was in it, because I saw them from the neck down, it wasn't my husband. It wasn't his energy, at least not his energy that it is now. It wasn't really even his body type. But I didn't really think too much about that. And I did that visualization, oh my gosh, that was months ago. That was January, February. So maybe even March. Yeah, it was months and months and months ago. And I did that visualization, and the energy I now realize was Doug. So let me link this all together about sacred contracts. I am someone who believes I can change anything and fix anything. And I can when it's in myself. And what I had to learn to realize and what I had to come to terms with and accept is that I don't have control. I have influence through law of attraction. I do have influence over the way that I think about and treat somebody else, but I ultimately don't have control over anyone else's actions. And when I could exhaust all possibilities and all roads to heal my marriage and finally just surrender to the fact that he didn't want to be doing it anymore, and he didn't want to do the work, and he didn't want it to be this hard, and I just opened up to the possibility of letting the universe, letting myself be guided by my higher self. Ty Kane would say, it's not the universe, it's you. Fine, me, whatever, whoever. I was open and surrendered that I still believed I was going to get what I wanted. I thought it was going to be him by path of least resistance, but the path of least resistance wasn't him. It was someone who's much better fitted to be with me now. And our relationship is amazing. And you're going to hear about it on women, men, and relationships. So I've got 3 videos on the blog. The first one is my confession about my marriage. The second one is a video of me and Doug. The third one is a video of Doug on a stage professing his love for me to the people in the room. He is still not on board with sharing. If any of you follow me on Instagram, you're probably wondering why there's no pictures of me. I have been trying to be very respectful of this process and of this change and this transfer, both of our marriages as we're transitioning out of them, because it isn't my goal to hurt anybody's feelings of any kind. But at the same time, I want to share how happy I am. And now more than ever, I really understand how much this stuff works. This shit works, people. I manifested my husband the first time. We had our sacred contract of my growth, of his growth, of our lessons that we learned along the way, and of this amazing point, which we are all in right now. You are only listening to this because I went through this. So if you appreciate this show, if you appreciate the information you get, you can thank my husband and my marriage for getting us to this exact moment. And as I surrendered, what became clear is that I am now to move in a different direction, one that I'm ready for, one that supports me, and one that I want, and that I get all the things I asked for and more. I went through all of these different physical things about a relationship, and I even shared it with Doug, and he said, yep, that's all me, separate from you. That's all me. I said, right. But the best part, the next best part, besides all the things that I wanted that I'm now getting, is that he's an entrepreneur. He's a podcaster. We complement each other so well in business and in life. And there's a synergy that I didn't even know was possible. You know, I got stuck for a long time on the idea that I'm never going to be married for 30 or 40 years. Well, I don't know about that now, but but I'm not going to hit that 50-year mark. And that a whole idea of divorce and the idea of failure and other people's judgment about that. And what I realized is that the biggest person's judgment about that is mine. I really still believe too many people give up on their marriages way too fast. You attract your partner to heal the wounds of your past. If you don't believe it, I don't care. It's a fact. In fact, it's a fucking fact. And it's your choice if you want to go down that road or not. And what I kept telling friends over the years who are getting divorced, just go do the work. Go do the imago therapy and figure out what your lesson is so that even if you don't stay in the marriage, you don't repeat your lesson. That's the biggest part, guys. You will repeat your lesson if you don't learn it. But without uncovering why you chose your partner in the first place, and you really don't need the partner to do it. Now that I've gone through it, I was waiting to go through it. I kept begging him to go through it with me over the years at good points and at bad points because I wanted to do the work. I wanted to know why we attracted each other and what do I need to heal or work on? And did I work on it? Is it healed? But he didn't want to do it until the end, until I said, this is the only thing left that we need to do. Otherwise, what are we doing? But now that I've done it, I'm going to do it with all of you when you come to the event because this work is crazy. It is going to show you and explain to you why you keep repeating the patterns you keep repeating. So there's my confession. My confession is that I'm in the process of transitioning out of my marriage and I'm in a new relationship with Doug Sandler. So if any of you listen to the Nice Guys on Business, you've heard this coming for a long time because when he gets in front of the mic, it's just therapy for him. So he just talks, he and his business partner, Strickland, and he's been sharing on his podcast about me for months, about all kinds of things. He's also shared that his marriage is basically he's getting a divorce and all that kind of stuff as well. And I've been pretty tight-lipped. And I've been tight-lipped because I want to be respectful of everybody. But I'm not going to be tight-lipped anymore because I've waited enough time. We are living together. We are working together. We are loving life and so excited about our future together. And I really don't think either one of us have been this happy in a long time, even though at points I didn't think I was unhappy. I wasn't the person complaining about being in a bad marriage or anything about my husband. I understand. I have empathy and compassion. I know exactly what's going on there, which is why I stayed. Because I thought, well, I understand it and I can be compassionate and I can have compassion for you. But there came a point in which I had too much compassion for him and not enough for me. But I'll be honest, I didn't know that I thought anyone was going to match me. I didn't know that anyone could actually handle me, because unfortunately, some of the lessons I learned in my marriage was that maybe I'm too much. Maybe I am too intense, and all the different aspects about me that weren't received. They weren't received because they couldn't be received, not because they're bad. And when I was the same person with Doug as I had been with my husband, and I was received completely different. When I heard the words that I helped Doug feel like a man and vulnerable at the same time, supported and felt like a man, I just thought that has been my whole goal, my whole marriage, to try to find a way to communicate and be the person to support him and to help in some way. We did not match in that. Our frequencies were too different. And again, I can only work on my own frequency. And the only thing you can do in yours is to work on yours as well. So if you want to go through the process, if you want to understand a little deeper what actually really happened so you can really understand what I was up against, I invite you to come to the event. I invite you to have a session. If your relationship needs some help, I can help you. I know I can, because I feel now that I've been to the every end of relationship, from amazing start and really great connection to going through all these lessons and journeys to hitting the end, and then to manifesting the next level, the next step, the right match for my next phase. My husband was my right match this entire time. Again, I always checked in. On one level, I had no problem leaving in my mind, but I just kept checking in, and my body kept saying, no, this is where you're supposed to be right now. So I thank you to Ty Kane for helping with the vision process that was supposed to save my marriage, but instead attracted the next chapter of my life. And for Lisa Thomas, who helped clear the path for an easy transition. Boy, was it easy. And for the work of Abraham Hicks, which I've been doing for all this time, which is the foundation of everything that I do. And for me, I'm thankful for me to doing the work, to getting into such a high vibration about what I knew was possible, what I totally believed could happen, and then sat back, surrendered, and allowed it to come to me. Allowed the universe to put it in my lap and in my hands the minute I released what I was currently gripping onto and trying to control. So I hope you'll follow us on our journey. Doug will be a co-host on Women, Men, and Relationships. We're going to be doing the second episode of the week. I will still have the interview episodes on the Tuesdays, and then we will do a little 15, 20, 30 minute, I don't know, he's verbose too. Podcasters like to talk. And when I went to Podcast Movement and New Media Summit for the first time, I really got that was my tribe. People who are entrepreneurs in some way, shape, or form. Some make money, some don't. People who love to talk. People who love to think. People who love to talk to each other and connect on this level. I really, really understood this was my tribe. And again, I could not be here without the path I've already taken. So nothing I did was wrong. Nothing I did was a mistake. It has led me here. And I wish my husband nothing but amazing success and the love that he wants, and the love in the relationship that he wants that's different than the one that we had, that's better than the one that we had. And I know we'll be friends eventually. And I look forward to connecting with him. There's no man that I've had a relationship with for any significant amount of time who isn't still a part of my life. I am a big believer in that if you leave out of anger and you have resentment, that will weigh you down and stop you from being open to the best parts of the life that you could have. Make peace with and heal all the parts of you that hold on to anger and resentment and things that are, and not having forgiveness for yourself and forgiveness for others. And besides all the resources that I just mentioned in today's show, I'm going to, again, also tell you that we're going to do a little bit of the call and tipping work at the event as well about radical self-forgiveness, because that is a huge piece, whether you know it or not, that stops people from making decisions that support them. And I had to learn that one too. I did not think that I was holding myself hostage as much as I was until I did it. So please come over to jjflazanes.com. Check out the blog post if you want to watch the videos of me and Doug, and then Doug professing his love, which was really sweet and amazing. And I'm really happy I got it on camera. And also This is the last call for the Manifestation Challenge. We are starting August 1st. If relationships, love, doesn't really matter, guys. It's the same process for all of it. But if you're ready to up-level your life, you can come try it out for free in August. You can come and commune in person and also get the next 5 levels of clearing, healing, and resetting at the next big step. And you can find all of that information at jjflizanes.com. If you go to free tools and resources, you can find the link for the Manifestation Challenge to join us in August. It's free. You can also go to jjflizanes.com to the event page to find more information about the next big step or releasing what weighs you down in January. I would love to connect with you a little bit deeper about this if you want to. I thank you so much for your support. And now, as you start to hear some of the shows that I've had coming that will be published after this, you'll start to understand why I've been holding them. And you can hear the information from 2 different aspects. Because like I've said before, I do believe still that people give up on their relationships way too quickly and don't do the work that is available for them to do to actually save their marriage. And I did everything I could possibly do. And the universe gave me a very clear signal that thank you, you've grown, and now it's time for you to get what you want.